The cold seeped through the thin walls of the cottage, finding every crack, every weakness. Blair pulled the threadbare blanket higher over her swollen belly and stared at the ceiling beams she'd memorized over the past 4 months. 4 months since the rogue attack. 4 months since she'd felt her legs beneath her. The baby kicked. A sharp jab against her ribs that would have made her gasp and shift positions if she could shift positions anymore. Instead, she pressed a hand to the spot and whispered, "I know, little one. I know you're running out of room." 7 months pregnant, paralyzed, and alone except for Elder Mara's weekly visits. This wasn't how she'd imagined bringing a child into the world. The door creaked open, and Mara entered without knocking, her weathered face drawn tight with concern. She carried her healing satchel and something else, a leather-bound book Blair had never seen before. "You look pale," Mara said, settling onto the stool beside Blair's bed with a grunt. Her joints protested the movement, but her hands were steady as she reached for Blair's wrist, checking her pulse. "I'm always pale now. Turns out lying in bed for months doesn't give you much of a glow." Blair tried for humor, but it came out flat, lifeless. Mara's fingers pressed against Blair's skin, and her eyes drifted closed. The old healer's gift had always unsettled Blair, the way Mara could read a body's secrets through touch alone. After a long moment, Mara's eyes snapped open, and the fear Blair saw there made her stomach clench. "What is it? Is the baby—" "The baby is extraordinary." Mara's voice carried a weight that made the words feel less like reassurance and more like a curse. She set the ancient book on Blair's chest, its leather cover worn smooth by countless hands. "I didn't want to believe it. I've checked 3 times now, hoping I was wrong." Blair's fingers trembled as she touched the book. "You're scaring me." "Your child carries the bloodline of the ancient wolves, the first pack. The original Luna's power runs through their veins." Mara opened the book to a marked page, revealing an illustration of a wolf glowing with silver light, surrounded by kneeling pack members. The prophecy speaks of a child born of suffering, carried by one who cannot run, who will unite the fractured packs and end the territorial wars that have plagued us for generations. The baby kicked again, harder this time, as if responding to Mara's words. Blair shook her head, the movement small and helpless against her pillow. "That's impossible. I'm an Omega. I have no power, no status. My child's father is dead, killed by the same rogues who did this to me." She gestured vaguely at her useless legs. "We're nothing special. The father's bloodline doesn't matter. This power comes from you, from a heritage you never knew you carried." Mara's weathered hand covered Blair's. "But that's precisely why you're in danger. The other packs, the rogues, the alphas who profit from keeping us divided, they'll kill this child the moment they learn of the prophecy. They've already tried once." The rogue attack. Blair had thought it random violence, wrong place and wrong time. But if Mara was right, "They'll try again," Blair whispered. "Yes, which is why you must reach the Alpha King's territory. Roman's kingdom is the strongest, the most defensible. He's bound by the ancient laws to protect prophesied bloodlines. If you can get to him, you and your child will be safe." Blair laughed, the sound bitter and sharp. "Get to him? Mara, look at me. I can't walk. The Alpha King's territory is 100 miles through hostile lands. I can barely make it from this bed to the chamber pot without help." "I know." Mara's voice softened and she squeezed Blair's hand. "I've been sending messages, calling in every favor I'm owed, trying to find someone willing to carry you there. But the journey is dangerous and you're a burden." Blair finished the sentence, the word tasting like ash in her mouth. "A pregnant Omega who can't even run if danger comes. Who would risk their life for that?" The baby kicked again, and Blair felt tears burn behind her eyes. She'd spent 4 months trying not to cry, trying to stay strong, but the unfairness of it all crashed over her like a wave. She was supposed to protect this child, That was a mother's most basic duty, and she couldn't even stand. Mara stayed with her as the sun set, helping her eat the thin soup that was all Blair's anxious stomach could handle, changing her position to prevent sores, brushing her tangled hair with gentle strokes. The kindness made Blair want to weep. "I'll keep looking," Mara promised as she prepared to leave. "Someone will come. They have to." But her eyes said what her mouth wouldn't. Time was running out. That night, Blair dreamed of running. She dreamed of strong legs carrying her through moonlit forests, of wind in her hair and power in her muscles. She dreamed of safety, of walls high enough to keep the monsters out. She dreamed of golden eyes watching her from the darkness, warm and fierce, and utterly focused. She woke to voices outside her cottage. The Alpha King's scent reached Blair before she saw him. Pine and winter storms and something wild that made her wolf, dormant and broken as it was, raise its head in recognition. The door opened and Roman filled the doorway. Blair had heard stories of the Alpha King her entire life, how he'd unified the northern territories through strength and strategy, how he'd defeated 3 rival alphas in single combat before his 25th birthday, how he was brilliant and ruthless and utterly untouchable, wed only to his crown. None of the stories mentioned that he was beautiful. He stood well over 6 feet tall, his shoulders broad enough to block the morning light streaming through the door. Dark hair fell across his forehead, and those golden eyes from her dream, they were real, fixed on her with an intensity that stole her breath. His face was all sharp angles and masculine beauty, marred only by a thin scar running from his left temple to his jaw. The mate bond snapped into place like a physical blow. Blair gasped, her hand flying to her chest as the connection blazed to life between them. Warmth flooded through her, and for one impossible moment she felt whole, complete. The broken pieces of herself suddenly made sense because they'd been waiting for this, for him, for the other half of her soul. Roman staggered, his hand gripping the doorframe as his eyes widened. "You," he breathed, and his voice was rough velvet, wrapping around her like a caress. "I've been dreaming of you." "That's impossible." Blair's voice came out small and shaky. "The mate bond doesn't work that way. It requires proximity, scent, touch. Not for true mates." Mara's voice came from behind Roman, smug and satisfied. The old healer pushed past the Alpha King with the kind of disrespect only the very old and very powerful could manage. "I sent word to Roman 2 weeks ago about the prophecy. Seems his wolf knew before his mind did." Roman moved into the cottage with predatory grace, each step deliberate and controlled, and Blair noticed the tall, dark-haired man who followed him. His beta, she assumed, from the way he positioned himself to guard the door. "I didn't believe the dreams at first," Roman said, his eyes never leaving Blair's face. "I thought they were tricks, or wishes, or madness. I've been king for 7 years and never felt even a whisper of a mate bond. I'd accepted I would rule alone." He crossed to her bedside and knelt, bringing himself to her level. Up close, he was even more devastating. All masculine beauty and barely contained power. The mate bond hummed between them, stronger with proximity, urging her to touch him, to complete the connection. "Then I saw your face clearly 3 nights ago," he continued softly. "And I knew. I felt you here." He pressed a fist to his chest. "So I came. I had to come." Blair's heart hammered against her ribs. This couldn't be real. Omegas didn't get alpha mates, especially not Alpha Kings, and certainly not when they were 7 months pregnant with another man's child and paralyzed from the waist down. "I can't walk," she blurted out, needing him to understand before this went any further, before hope could take root and destroy her when reality inevitably crushed it. "I was attacked. Do you think any of that matters to me?" His thumb brushed across her cheekbone with devastating gentleness. "You're my mate, mine. I've waited 32 years for you, and I would wait 32 more if needed. But it does matter, Blair whispered. Your legs, your pregnancy, your past. Roman's voice caught slightly, his jaw tightening as he seemed to wrestle with something internal. The council will question it. They'll say a king needs a Luna who can stand beside him in battle, who can... He stopped abruptly, his hand trembling against her cheek. When he spoke again, his voice was rougher, more raw. But they're wrong. What you are to me, it's everything. The journey, though. Blair's voice cracked. Mara said I need to reach your territory for protection. I can't make that journey. I can't walk. Roman's expression flickered. Uncertainty, frustration, something almost like fear crossing his features. His free hand clenched at his side as he stared down at her, clearly calculating distances, dangers, the sheer logistics of moving someone in her condition through hostile territory. It's 200 miles through rogue territory, he said quietly, almost to himself. River crossings, mountain passes. His thumb stilled against her skin. You're right. It should be impossible. The admission hung between them, heavy with the weight of reality. Blair felt her heart sink. But then Roman's grip on her face tightened slightly, his golden eyes blazing with sudden fierce determination. Should be. But I didn't claw my way to a throne to be stopped by should be. His jaw clenched, and she could see him calculating, weighing options. Then I'll walk for both of us. But Blair... His voice dropped, rough with something that might have been fear. This isn't some grand romantic gesture. If we do this, if I carry you through rogue territory for 3 days, I'll be vulnerable, exhausted. My scent will be everywhere, marking us as targets. He pulled back slightly, forcing her to meet his eyes. And you'll have to trust me completely. No arguments about rest stops. No trying to spare my pride when I'm struggling. If I say we hide, we hide. If I say we run, you hold on and don't look back. Blair's throat tightened. What about your pack? You can't just abandon them to... I'll have to send Marcus ahead with most of our forces. Leave our flank exposed. Roman's smile was bitter now. Nothing sharp or dangerous about it. Just tired. My enemies will see opportunity in that. They always do. Before Blair could respond, he slid his arms beneath her, one under her knees, one supporting her back. His muscles strained visibly as he found his balance, and she felt the slight tremor in his arms as he adjusted for her weight and the awkward distribution of her pregnancy. What are you doing? Blair clutched at his shoulders, feeling the tension coiled in every line of his body. Making a choice. Roman's breathing was already slightly labored, though he tried to hide it. Taking you home, even if it costs me everything else. You can't just carry me. It's 100 miles. Those golden eyes met hers, fierce and certain and utterly uncompromising. I'm the strongest alpha in the Northern Territories. I once carried an injured wolf 50 miles through a blizzard to save his life. You think I can't carry my own mate to safety? His arms tightened around her. I would carry you to the ends of the earth if that's what you needed. The baby kicked, hard enough that Roman must have felt it through their pressed-together bodies. His eyes widened slightly, and something incredibly soft passed over his features. Your child is precious to you? He asked quietly. Blair nodded, not trusting her voice. Then they're precious to me. I will protect them as my own. I swear it on my crown and my life. Tears finally spilled over, tracking hot paths down Blair's cold cheeks. She'd been alone for so long, carrying this burden by herself. And now this man, this powerful, beautiful man who was apparently her mate, was offering to carry everything. Her broken body, her unborn child, her impossible future. Why? She whispered. You don't even know me. Roman started toward the door, his stride smooth and easy despite her weight in his arms. I know enough. My wolf knows everything that matters, and I have 100 miles to learn the rest. The beta, Garrett, she heard Roman call him, led the way outside, where 3 horses waited. Blair's breath caught. She couldn't ride. How would this work? Roman settled onto the largest horse with her still in his arms, arranging her sideways across his lap so her head rested against his shoulder and her legs draped over his thigh. His cloak wrapped around them both, creating a warm cocoon. Comfortable? He murmured against her hair. It was the most comfortable she'd been in months. Warm, supported, held, safe. Yes, she admitted. Good. Sleep if you need to, I've got you. As they rode away from the only shelter she'd known for 4 months, Blair felt the mate bond pulse between them with each beat of Roman's heart. She'd lost so much. Her mobility, her independence, her simple dreams of a quiet life. But maybe, just maybe, she was gaining something impossibly better. She let her eyes drift closed, lulled by the steady rhythm of the horse's gait and the warmth of her mate's arms around her. For the first time in 4 months, Blair felt hope. The first 2 days of travel passed in a blur of sensation Blair had nearly forgotten. The rhythm of the horse beneath them, the whisper of wind through pine trees, the vast open sky she'd only seen through a cottage window for 4 endless months. Roman's arms never wavered. He carried her through rocky terrain where the horses had to be led on foot, adjusting his grip so her weight settled comfortably against his chest. He carried her across shallow streams, his boots finding purchase on slippery stones while she clung to his shoulders. When they stopped to make camp, he lowered her gently onto bedrolls arranged near the fire, then built up the blaze until heat soaked through her borrowed cloak. Blair watched him move around the camp with fluid efficiency, and the mate bond hummed contentedly in her chest. Her wolf, silent and retreating since the attack, stirred with interest for the first time in months. "You're staring," Roman said without looking up from the rabbit he was skinning. Heat flooded Blair's cheeks. "I'm not used to people taking care of me." "Get used to it." He glanced at her, firelight catching in those golden eyes. "You're mine to care for now." The possessiveness in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, it made something warm unfurl in her stomach. Garrett returned from scouting their perimeter, his dark hair damp with evening mist. "Clear for 2 miles in every direction. We should be safe tonight." He nodded to Blair with surprising gentleness. "How are you holding up?" "I'm fine." The lie came automatically. Roman's eyes narrowed. "Your back is hurting. I can feel your discomfort through the bond." Blair bit her lip. The constant sitting, even cradled in Roman's arms, put pressure on her spine in ways that made her teeth ache. But complaining felt wrong when he was already doing so much. "It's nothing," she insisted. "Blair!" Roman's voice dropped to that alpha tone that made her wolf want to roll over and submit. "Don't hide pain from me. I need to know when something's wrong." She looked away, focusing on the fire's dancing flames. "What are you going to do about it?" "We can't exactly stop traveling because my back hurts. The prophecy, the danger. We have to keep moving." Roman wiped his hands clean and crossed to her with that predatory grace that never failed to steal her breath. He knelt behind her, his large hand settling on her shoulders. "May I?" he asked quietly. Blair nodded, not trusting her voice. His thumbs pressed into the muscles flanking her spine, and she couldn't suppress her gasp. 4 months of immobility had left her perpetually tense, her upper body compensating for legs that no longer worked. Roman's hands were magic, finding every knot, every ache, working them loose with steady pressure. "Tell me about the attack," he said softly. "Tell me what happened." Blair's first instinct was to deflect, to change the subject, but his hands kept working their magic and the mate bond wrapped around her like a warm blanket. Safe. She felt safe. "I was gathering herbs," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. For Elder Mara. There's a clearing about a mile from my cottage where moonflower grows, and she needed it for a birthing tea. I went at dawn, when it's usually safest. Roman's hands paused, then continued their steady massage. They came out of nowhere. 6 of them. Rogues, I thought, but they moved with too much coordination. They knew where I'd be. Her throat tightened. One of them said, "The Omega dies here. No prophecy, no war." I didn't understand then. I didn't know I was pregnant. Didn't know about the bloodline. "They came for your child before you even knew you carried them," Roman growled, and the sound vibrated through her back where they touched. I tried to fight. My wolf was never strong, but I tried. Blair's hands clenched in her lap. One of them caught me from behind, slammed me into a tree. I felt something snap in my spine. And then, nothing. No legs. No wolf. Just pain and terror and blood. Roman's hands stilled on her shoulders, his grip tightening almost painfully before he forced himself to gentle. They would have killed me, but Mara found me. She'd had a vision, came running. Her magic drove them back, but the damage was done. Blair drew a shaky breath. I woke up in my cottage 3 days later and I couldn't move anything below my waist, couldn't feel my legs, couldn't shift. And I was pregnant. 2 months along, though I hadn't known. The baby's father had been killed by rogues a month before. I was alone and broken and carrying a child I had no idea how to protect. Strong arms wrapped around her from behind, and Roman pulled her back against his chest. His face pressed into her hair, and she felt him shaking. "I'm sorry," he breathed. "I'm so damn sorry that happened to you, that you were alone, that I wasn't there. You didn't know I existed." "My soul knew. It was calling for you while you suffered." His arms tightened. "But I'm here now, and nothing will touch you again. I swear it on my life, Blair. Nothing." She let herself lean into him, accepting comfort for the first time since the attack. The mate bond sang between them, and for a moment, she let herself believe his promise. Garrett cleared his throat from across the fire. "I'll take first watch." As the beta disappeared into the darkness, Roman adjusted their position, pulling Blair fully into his lap so she sat sideways across his thighs, her head tucked under his chin. She should have protested, should have insisted on maintaining some distance, some propriety. But his warmth soaked into her cold skin, and the steady beat of his heart beneath her ear was the most soothing sound she'd heard in months. "Tell me about being king," she whispered. "It must be lonely." Roman's chest rumbled with a humorless laugh. "Lonely doesn't begin to cover it. I have thousands of pack members, dozens of advisors, a council full of alphas seeking favor, and I trust maybe 3 of them completely." His hand found hers in the darkness, fingers intertwining. "I became king at 25 when my father, mother, and younger sister were murdered by my uncle, who wanted the crown for himself. I killed him in combat, took the throne, and spent the next year rooting out every conspirator who'd supported him. By the time I was done, I'd executed half the court and terrified the other half into absolute loyalty." Blair's fingers tightened around his. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. They deserved what they got. But it taught me a hard lesson. Trust no one. Depend on no one. Love no one. A king who opens his heart gives his enemies a target." His other hand came up to cup her face, tilting it so she met his eyes. "Or so I thought. Until I dreamed of you. Until I felt what it meant to have a mate. Now I understand what I've been missing. Why my wolf has been so restless all these years." The vulnerability in his voice made her chest ache. This powerful alpha king, feared across territories, admitting his loneliness like a secret shame. "I'm terrified," Blair confessed, "of being your mate, of failing you, of not being enough. I can't even walk, Roman. How can I be a Luna? How can I stand at your side when I can't stand at all?" Roman's thumb brushed across her lips, silencing her. You're already enough. More than enough. His eyes blazed in the firelight. Do you know what I see when I look at you? Strength. You survived an attack meant to kill you. You've lived 4 months paralyzed and pregnant, alone except for an old healer. And you haven't broken. You're carrying a prophesied child with a target on their head, and you're still fighting to protect them. That's not weakness, Blair. That's the kind of strength most alphas never possess. But I told you I'd walk for both of us. And I meant it. Literally, metaphorically, in every possible way. His forehead pressed against hers. You don't need to be anything other than what you are. My mate. My Luna. Mine. The kiss happened without conscious decision from either of them. One moment they were breathing the same air, foreheads touching, and the next his lips claimed hers with a hunger that stole her breath. The mate bond exploded between them, pleasure racing down her spine and pooling in her stomach. Blair gasped against his mouth, and Roman groaned, his hand tangling in her hair to angle her head for better access. He kissed like he did everything else, with complete focus and devastating skill. His tongue traced the seam of her lips, requesting entry, and she opened for him helplessly. The baby kicked hard, right against where their bodies pressed together. Roman broke the kiss with a breathless laugh, his hand moving to cover her swollen belly. Someone objects to being squished. Someone's been kicking me in the ribs for weeks. Blair's voice came out shakier than she'd intended, her lips still tingling. I think they're going to be a fighter. Good. Roman's expression softened as his hand spread across her stomach. They'll need to be strong to handle the destiny ahead of them. His eyes lifted to hers. Have you felt them move much today? Constantly. I think the horse's movement is exciting them. That's good. That's healthy. He kept his hand on her belly, and she realized he was waiting, hoping to feel another kick. The baby obliged, a strong roll that pressed against his palm. Wonder transformed Roman's features. Incredible, he breathed. There's a whole person in there. A whole person who's running out of room and likes to kick my bladder at inconvenient moments. Roman's laugh was warm and genuine, transforming his severe features into something breathtaking. We'll be at the safe house tomorrow night. Proper bed, proper facilities, hot food. You can rest. Safe house? I have them placed along major routes throughout the Northern Territories. Secure locations my people maintain for emergencies. His hand moved from her belly to her back, resuming the gentle massage. We'll spend a night there, let you properly recover, and then continue to the palace. The palace, where she'd have to be Luna to his king, where everyone would see her weakness, her inability. Blair's anxiety must have shown on her face because Roman's arms tightened around her. Stop, he commanded softly. I can feel your fear through the bond. Whatever you're worrying about, stop. Easy for you to say. Blair, look at me. He waited until her eyes met his. I don't care what anyone thinks. Not the council, not the court, not the other alphas. You're my mate, chosen by fate itself. Anyone who has a problem with that can challenge me directly. The fierce protectiveness in his voice made her wolf purr. They sat together by the fire until Blair's eyes grew heavy, lulled by Roman's warmth and the gentle stroke of his hand through her hair. He carried her to the bedroll, laying her down with exquisite care and tucking furs around her until she was cocooned in warmth. Sleep, he murmured, pressing a kiss to her forehead. I'll keep watch. You need rest too. I'll sleep when you're safe behind the walls of my kingdom. Until then, watching over you is all the rest I need. Blair wanted to argue, but exhaustion pulled at her like a tide. The last thing she saw before sleep claimed her was Roman settling beside her bedroll, his golden eyes reflecting firelight as he kept his vigil. She dreamed of running again, but this time she wasn't alone. A dark wolf ran at her side, powerful and protective, matching her stride for stride. The mountain pass narrowed to barely 10 feet across, sheer rock faces rising on either side like the walls of a tomb. Blair shivered in Roman's arms, and it had nothing to do with the cold. "I don't like this," Garrett muttered from behind them. "Too narrow, no visibility. Perfect ambush territory." "Agreed," Roman said, his arms tightening around Blair. "But it's the fastest route to the safe house, and Blair needs proper rest." "I'm fine," Blair protested automatically. "You winced 3 times in the last hour." Roman's voice was gentle but firm. "Your back is hurting worse. We need—" Garrett's warning shout came too late. They exploded from crevices in the rock face. 6 wolves. No, 8. Dropping from above and emerging from shadows. The horses screamed and reared. Roman twisted, his body curving around Blair protectively as he hit the ground, absorbing the impact with his shoulder while keeping her cradled against his chest. "Stay down," he commanded, setting her against the rock wall and putting himself between her and the attackers. The change rippled through him in seconds, bones cracking and reforming, skin sprouting thick black fur. His wolf was massive, easily twice the size of the rogues circling them, with eyes that glowed molten gold in the darkness. Garrett shifted too, his gray wolf taking up position on Roman's flank. But they were outnumbered, and more wolves kept appearing from the shadows. Then Blair saw him. Marcus. She recognized her former pack's beta even in wolf form, the distinctive white patch on his shoulder, the cruel intelligence in his eyes. He'd always looked at her with disdain, the weak Omega who contributed nothing to pack strength. Now, he looked at her with murder. "The Omega dies." A voice spoke directly into her mind, Marcus's mental command broadcast to all who could hear. "Kill the child. End the prophecy." Roman's snarl shook rocks loose from the cliff face. He launched himself at Marcus with terrifying speed, jaws snapping for the beta's throat. The rogues converged, trying to get past him to Blair, and she pressed herself harder against the stone wall. Helpless. She was completely helpless. Blood sprayed across stone as Roman's jaws closed on a rogue's throat. Another wolf lunged for his exposed flank, and Garrett intercepted, teeth tearing through muscle and sinew. They were skilled, powerful, but the rogues kept coming. One broke through their defense. Blair saw it happening as if in slow motion. A scarred gray wolf charging directly at her, teeth bared, murder in its eyes. She couldn't run, couldn't shift, couldn't even stand to defend herself, but she could protect her child. The words rose from somewhere deep in her memory, ancient syllables Elder Mara had made her memorize without explanation. Lunara Ve, Solaris Tum, Protectum Me. Light exploded from Blair's hands. Silver-white radiance burst outward in a shield, and the attacking wolf slammed into it like hitting a wall. The impact sent the rogue flying backward, smoke rising from where it had touched the magical barrier. Every wolf in the pass froze, staring at Blair. She stared at her own hands, glowing with otherworldly light, and felt power singing through her veins. The prophecy, the ancient bloodline. It wasn't just her child who carried the old magic. It lived in her too, dormant until needed. Marcus's howl of rage shattered the moment. Kill her. Kill her now. The rogues attacked in a coordinated rush, but Roman fought like death incarnate. Blair had heard stories of alpha power, but witnessing it was another thing entirely. He moved through the attacking wolves like a force of nature, each strike precise and lethal. His jaws crushed bone, his claws opened throats, his power radiated outward in waves that made the lesser wolves stumble and whine. Blair's shield flickered, her untrained magic already failing. "Roman!" she screamed. He heard her. Through the bond, through the battle, through everything, he heard her. His massive head turned, saw her shield dying, saw 2 rogues circling for another attack on his mate. The Alpha King's roar split the night. Power erupted from Roman like a shockwave. Pure, undiluted alpha command that drove every wolf except Garrett to their knees. It pressed against Blair's shield like physical pressure, but the magic recognized its mate and parted around her. Submit. Roman's mental command crashed through every mind in the pass. Or die. 3 rogues bowed, whimpering, completely overwhelmed by the display of dominance. 2 tried to flee, and Garrett cut them down before they'd gone 3 steps. The last 2, including Marcus, remained standing through sheer willpower, but Blair could see them shaking with the effort. Marcus met Roman's blazing eyes. This isn't over. The prophecy will die. The child will never unite us. He turned and fled, the 2 surviving rogues scrambling after him. Roman started to give chase, but Blair's shield collapsed, and she sagged against the stone wall. He was at her side instantly, shifting back to human form and gathering her into his arms. "Are you hurt?" His hands moved over her frantically, checking for wounds. "Blair, answer me. Are you hurt?" "I'm fine. The baby's fine." She was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. "How did I— What was that? Your magic?" Roman's voice was rough with emotion. "The ancient bloodline manifesting to protect your child." He pressed his forehead to hers. "You were incredible. I couldn't hold it. If you hadn't— But I did. We protected each other." His arms tightened around her. "That's what mates do." Garrett approached in human form, blood streaking his arms and chest. "We need to move. Marcus knows where we are now, and he'll come back with reinforcements." Roman nodded, already standing with Blair secure in his arms. "The safe house is 2 miles ahead. We run." They ran through the mountain pass, Garrett leading the way and Roman's arms never loosening around Blair's trembling body. She buried her face in his neck, breathing in his scent, letting the mate bond reassure her that they were alive. They were safe. They'd survived. But Marcus's words echoed in her mind. "This isn't over." No, it wasn't over. It was just beginning. The safe house was a cabin built into the mountainside, cleverly disguised to look like natural rock formations. Inside, it was surprisingly comfortable. A large bed, a fireplace, supplies meant to last for weeks. Roman settled Blair on the bed while Garrett secured the perimeter, murmuring protective incantations at every entrance. When they were alone, Roman knelt before her, his golden eyes dark with concern. "You're still shaking." "I used magic." Blair stared at her hands, which still tingled with residual power. "I didn't know I could do that. Mara taught me the words, but she never explained." The ancient bloodline responding to threat. "Your wolf might not be able to surface, but the magic can." Roman captured her hands in his larger ones. "You saved us. If you hadn't created that shield, the rogues would have gotten to you while I was fighting." "I couldn't hold it," Blair whispered. "I'm not strong enough." "You held it long enough. That's all that mattered." He brought her hands to his lips, kissing each palm. "But we're going to train you. When we reach the palace, I have mages who can teach you to control your power." The baby kicked hard, as if agitated by the night's violence. Blair gasped, pressing a hand to her belly, and Roman's hand immediately covered hers. "I'm sorry," she whispered to her unborn child. "I'm so sorry you're in danger because of what you are. Don't apologize for their destiny." Roman's voice was gentle but firm. "This child is meant for greatness. Yes, that comes with danger, but it also comes with power, with purpose. They'll change the world, Blair. They'll end the wars and unite our people. That's worth protecting." Blair wanted to believe him, wanted to embrace the prophecy instead of fearing it. But tonight had shown her how real the danger was. Marcus wanted her child dead, and he clearly wasn't alone in that desire. "I need—" She trailed off, unsure how to ask. "What do you need?" Roman's thumb stroked her cheekbone. "Tell me." I'm disgusting, covered in dust and sweat and fear. She gestured helplessly at herself. 4 months of being unable to bathe properly, and now this. I just want to be clean. Understanding softened Roman's features. There's a bathing room through that door. Give me a moment. He disappeared, and Blair heard water running. He returned within minutes and lifted her effortlessly, carrying her through to a small room where a large copper tub sat steaming. How? The safe houses have heating runes built into the tubs. Hot water, on demand. He set her on a stool beside the tub. Do you want help, or would you prefer privacy? Blair's cheeks flamed. The mate bond thrummed between them, and part of her wanted to say yes, wanted to let him see all of her, touch all of her. But the logical part of her brain screamed that she'd known this man for 3 days. I can manage, she said softly. Roman nodded, but his eyes held understanding. Call if you need me. Alone, Blair struggled with her borrowed dress, managing to work it over her head with clumsy fingers. Her reflection in the copper tub's surface showed her reality: a swollen belly, pale skin, and useless legs hanging limp from the stool. Getting into the tub without working legs was a calculated risk. She gripped the sides and tried to lever herself over, but her arms shook with the effort. She was going to fall. She was going to... The door opened. Don't, Roman said firmly, crossing to her before she could protest. You'll hurt yourself. I can do it, she insisted, but her arms were already failing. I know you can, but you don't have to. He lifted her easily, his eyes never dropping below her face, maintaining her dignity even as he lowered her into the heated water. There. Better? The hot water enveloped her like a miracle, soaking into sore muscles and cold skin. Blair couldn't suppress her moan of relief. Roman's eyes darkened. I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that sound, or I won't be able to leave this room. Stay, Blair heard herself say. Please, I don't want to be alone right now. He settled on the floor beside the tub, his back against the wall, giving her privacy while still being present. They sat in comfortable silence for long moments, the only sound the occasional drip of water and the crackle of the fire in the main room. Tell me about your family, Blair said quietly. The ones you lost. Roman's jaw tightened, but he answered. My father was a good king, fair, strong, loved by the pack. My mother was his mate, a fierce warrior who could take down wolves twice her size. They taught me everything about ruling, about honor, about protecting those weaker than myself. His hand clenched into a fist on his knee. My sister was 10 years younger than me, Alina. She had our mother's dark hair and our father's golden eyes. She wanted to be a healer, spent all her time studying herbs and medicine with the palace healers. She was kind in a way that's rare among powerful wolves. Gentle. She sounds wonderful, Blair whispered. She was. And my uncle murdered her anyway. Slit her throat while she slept because she was a loose end, a potential rival to any children he might have once he took the throne. Roman's voice went flat, emotionless in the way of someone recounting unbearable pain. I found her. I was the one who found all of them. My parents in the throne room, poisoned. Alina in her bed, drowned in her own blood. And my uncle sitting on my father's throne, crown already on his head, smiling. Blair reached out, her wet hand finding his. He gripped it like a lifeline. I challenged him immediately, combat for the crown. He accepted because he thought I was too emotional, too grief-stricken to fight effectively. Roman's smile was sharp and terrible. I tore him apart slowly, made him suffer for what he'd taken from me, and when I finally ended him, I looked at what I'd become, an alpha king with no family, no mate, no one to love and no one to love me. Just a crown and a mountain of corpses. You had to protect your pack, Blair said firmly. I did. But I became cold. closed off. I refused to let anyone close enough to matter because I couldn't survive losing someone again. His eyes met hers, vulnerable in a way she suspected few people ever saw. Until you. The moment the mate bond snapped into place, I felt everything I'd buried for 7 years come roaring back. Fear and hope and need and terror. You could destroy me, Blair. You have that power now. She squeezed his hand, her heart aching for this powerful man who'd been so alone. I would never. I know. My wolf knows. That's what makes this terrifying. He brought her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles with devastating gentleness. I'm falling for you. Faster than I should. Deeper than is wise. And I can't stop it. I'm falling too, Blair confessed. It's only been 3 days, and that should be crazy. But the mate bond. The mate bond just accelerates what would have happened anyway. Fate recognized what we needed before we did. Roman's thumb traced circles on her palm. I would have fallen for you without it. Maybe slower, but just as completely. The water had cooled, and Blair shivered. Roman stood immediately, grabbing a towel and holding it open while keeping his eyes averted. Come on, let's get you warm and dry. He lifted her from the tub, wrapping her in the towel with practiced efficiency, and carried her back to the main room. He'd laid out a clean nightgown on the bed, soft, warm, clearly meant for exactly this kind of emergency. Turn around, Blair instructed. Roman obeyed, facing the fire while she struggled into the nightgown. Her useless legs made even simple tasks complicated, but she managed, preserving some small shred of independence. Okay, she said when she was decent. He turned back, and something in his expression made her breath catch. Hunger and restraint warred in those golden eyes as he looked at her. Clean, dressed in a thin nightgown that did little to hide her curves, hair drying in waves around her shoulders. You're beautiful, he said roughly. So damn beautiful it hurts to look at you. I'm pregnant and broken. You're perfect and mine. He crossed to the bed, sitting beside her. Blair, I need to be clear about something. I want you. Everything in me is screaming to claim you, to complete the mate bond fully. But I won't push. Not until you're ready. Not until you want it too. The mate bond pulsed between them, thick with want and need. Blair's wolf stirred, making her desires known. But she was also exhausted, traumatized from the attack, 7 months pregnant, and paralyzed. I want to, she whispered honestly. But I'm scared. Of disappointing you. Of not being enough like this. Roman's hand cupped her face with heartbreaking tenderness. You could never disappoint me. When the time comes, and only when you're ready, I'll show you exactly how perfect you are. He kissed her then, slow and deep, a promise of pleasure deferred but not denied. When he finally pulled back, they were both breathing hard. For now, he murmured against her lips, let me just hold you. He arranged them on the bed, Blair curled against his chest, his arms wrapped protectively around her, his hand resting on her belly where the baby kicked contentedly. The fire crackled in the hearth, and outside, night wind whispered through the mountains. Roman? Blair's voice was small in the darkness. Thank you for everything, for carrying me, protecting me, making me feel safe, for walking for both of us. His arms tightened. I told you I'd carry you to the ends of the earth if needed. I meant it. I'll walk for both of us for however long you need. Forever, if that's what it takes. What if I'm never enough for your kingdom? What if your pack won't accept a broken Luna? Then they'll learn to accept it, or they'll answer to me. His voice carried that alpha command that made her shiver. You're my mate, my Luna, mine. Anyone who has a problem with that will find themselves facing the full force of my authority. Blair wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that love and fate were enough to overcome every obstacle. But doubt whispered in her mind, fed by Marcus's attack and years of being told she was worthless. She fell asleep to the steady rhythm of Roman's heartbeat and the gentle stroke of his hand through her hair, dreaming of a future where maybe, just maybe, she could be enough. The palace rose before them like something from a dream, white stone towers reaching toward the sky, walls thick enough to withstand any siege, gardens that sprawled across acres of manicured beauty. Blair stared at it from her position in Roman's arms, and her stomach twisted with anxiety. This was real. She was about to become Luna to the most powerful pack in the Northern Territories. She, who couldn't even walk. Roman carried her through the massive gates, and pack members stopped to stare. Blair saw their eyes widen at the sight of their king carrying a woman, saw whispers pass between them like wildfire. "Ignore them," Roman murmured. "They'll adjust." Garrett had ridden ahead to announce their arrival, so the palace staff stood assembled in the courtyard. An older woman in fine robes stepped forward, the head of household, Blair assumed. Her eyes took in Blair's condition with one sweeping glance, and her expression went carefully neutral. "Your Majesty," she said with a bow. "Welcome home. Shall I prepare the guest chambers for your companion?" "Prepare the Luna's chambers," Roman corrected, his voice carrying across the courtyard. "This is Blair, my mate. She will be honored and obeyed as your Luna." Shocked silence greeted his announcement. Then murmurs erupted, shocked, disbelieving, some clearly disapproving. Blair wanted to disappear, to hide from all those staring eyes. "Silence!" Roman's alpha command cracked like a whip. "You will show your Luna the respect she deserves." The pack members bowed, but Blair felt their reluctance, their doubt. Roman carried her inside, through halls of marble and gold, up a sweeping staircase to the royal wing. The Luna's chambers were stunning. A massive four-poster bed, a sitting area with plush furniture, windows overlooking the gardens. It was beautiful and overwhelming, and nothing like the simple cottage she'd called home. Roman set her gently on the bed. "I need to meet with the council. They'll want a full report on Marcus's attack and our journey. Will you be all right alone for a few hours?" "Of course." Blair forced a smile. "I've been alone for months. A few hours won't hurt me." He kissed her forehead. "I'll send servants to help you get settled. Anything you need. Just ask." After he left, Blair lay back on the impossibly soft bed and stared at the painted ceiling. She'd gone from a broken Omega in a cottage to the Alpha King's mate in less than a week. It felt like a dream, or a nightmare, depending on the moment. A soft knock interrupted her spiraling thoughts. "Come in," she called. 3 servants entered, all wearing the palace livery, all staring at her with barely concealed curiosity. The oldest, a woman perhaps in her 50s, stepped forward. "Luna," she said with a bow that seemed just slightly mocking. "I'm Mrs. Aldrich, head of the household staff. His Majesty asked us to help you get settled and prepare you for dinner." "Thank you," Blair said quietly. They moved around her with practiced efficiency, unpacking bags she hadn't known existed, laying out clothes, drawing a bath. But Blair heard their whispers. Not quite soft enough, not quite hidden enough. Pregnant with another man's child. Can't even walk. How's she supposed to be Luna? The king's lost his mind, claiming a broken Omega as his mate. Each word was a tiny knife, cutting deeper than the last. Blair bit her lip until she tasted blood, refusing to let them see her cry. Mrs. Aldrich returned, carrying an elegant dress. "For tonight's dinner, Luna, the council will be in attendance and first impressions matter." "I can't walk," Blair said flatly, "so I can't exactly make a grand entrance." "No," the woman agreed, her tone sympathetic but her eyes cold. "You certainly can't." They dressed her like a doll, tugging and pinning until the dark blue gown sat perfectly on her swollen frame. They arranged her hair in an elegant updo that showed her neck, and the mark of the mate bond that had appeared there when Roman first kissed her. When they finally left, Blair sat on the bed, dressed beautifully and utterly miserable. A commotion in the hallway made her turn toward the door. Raised voices, angry tones. The council demands an audience with her before dinner. We have a right to assess the king's choice of mate. His Majesty gave explicit instructions. His Majesty isn't here. Move aside. The door flew open, and 5 men entered, all alpha energy and barely contained aggression. Council members, Blair realized, feeling her wolf cower inside her chest. The leader, a gray-haired alpha with hard eyes, looked her over with obvious disdain. So you're the Omega who's bewitched our king. I haven't bewitched anyone. Blair lifted her chin, refusing to show fear even as her hands trembled in her lap. The mate bond chose us for each other. A mate bond between an alpha king and an Omega? Another council member laughed. Unlikely, and even if it's real, you're clearly unfit to be Luna. You can't walk, can't shift, can't even stand to greet your pack properly. You're carrying another man's bastard. You have no power, no influence, no strength to offer our king. Each word landed like a physical blow. Roman doesn't care about any of that, Blair said, hating how her voice shook. Roman is thinking with his wolf, not his head. The mate bond is making him irrational. The gray-haired alpha stepped closer. You need to understand something, girl. A Luna isn't just a king's mate. She's a symbol of strength. A warrior who stands beside her alpha in battle. She's a mother to the pack, a political force, a leader in her own right. What are you? A crippled Omega who can't even take care of herself, much less an entire kingdom. Tears burned behind Blair's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. The council will never approve you as Luna, another member said, almost kindly. Roman can keep you as a mistress if he wishes, but you cannot be recognized as his official mate. The pack won't accept it. So what do you want from me? Blair whispered. Reject the mate bond. Set him free to choose a proper Luna, someone strong, whole, capable of giving him legitimate heirs and standing proudly at his side. Do what's best for your king, and step aside. Blair's heart shattered in her chest. They were right. Everything they said was right. She'd been telling herself the same thing since the moment the mate bond snapped into place. She wasn't enough, could never be enough, and Roman's kingdom would suffer for his mate's weakness. Her voice broke. I need to think. Think quickly, the gray-haired alpha advised, because the longer you stay, the more damage you do to our king's reputation and our kingdom's stability. If you truly care for him, you'll leave. They filed out, leaving Blair alone with their poison words echoing in her mind. When Roman returned hours later, she'd made her decision. The cruelest, most selfless decision of her life. He burst through the door, his expression thunderous. I just heard the council cornered you. Blair, I'm so sorry. They had no right. They were right, Blair said quietly. Roman froze. What? Everything they said was right. I'm not fit to be your Luna. I can't walk, can't stand at your side, can't fight for your pack. I'm carrying another man's child. I'm weak and broken and useless, and you deserve so much better. Blair, I want you to reject the mate bond. The words tasted like ash, but she forced them out. For the good of your kingdom, for your own sake, reject me and find a proper Luna. Someone worthy of you. Roman's face went pale. You don't mean that. I do. Tears finally spilled over, tracking hot paths down her cheeks. I love you too much to ruin you. Please, Roman, let me go. No. His voice was raw. Absolutely not. I won't. I can't. The council won't approve me. Your pack won't accept me. And I can't stand by and watch you sacrifice everything for a mate who can't give you what you need. Blair's voice broke on a sob. Please, if you care about me at all, let me go. Roman stood frozen, torn between his mate and his crown, between his heart and his duty. And Blair saw the moment he realized he didn't have a choice. Ancient law required council approval for the Luna. Without it, their mate bond couldn't be officially recognized. He could keep her as a mistress, hidden away, but never as his equal, never as his Luna. I need time, he said hoarsely. Time to change their minds, to make them understand. Time won't change facts. Blair looked away, unable to bear the pain in his golden eyes. I'm still broken. Still pregnant with another man's child. Still useless. Time won't fix any of that. You're not useless? Roman moved toward her, but she held up a hand. Don't. Please don't touch me right now, or I'll lose what little strength I have left. Blair drew a shuddering breath. I'll stay until the baby is born. You promised to protect my child, and I'm holding you to that promise. But after I'll leave. You can tell everyone the mate bond was a mistake, that fate got it wrong. Find someone worthy of being your Luna. Blair, I'm tired. Please, just go. Roman stood there for a long moment, looking like she'd torn his heart from his chest. Then he turned and left without another word. Alone in her beautiful chambers, Blair finally let herself break. She sobbed into the pillows, mourning the future she'd glimpsed for 3 perfect days on the road. The dream of being loved, cherished, chosen. The fantasy of walking beside the Alpha King, not as a burden, but as his equal. But dreams shattered against the rocks of reality. And reality was that she was broken, and no amount of love could fix that. Roman stood in the throne room facing the assembled council and felt nothing but cold fury. You went to her chambers without my permission, he said, his voice deadly quiet. You cornered my pregnant, paralyzed mate and told her she was worthless. The gray-haired Alpha, Counselor Thorne, lifted his chin. We told her the truth, Your Majesty. The pack needs a strong Luna, not a... Choose your next words very carefully. Roman's alpha power pressed outward, making several council members stumble. Because they may be your last. Garrett stepped forward from his position by the door. Your Majesty, perhaps we should discuss this calmly. There's nothing to discuss. Roman's eyes blazed gold. I invoke the ancient right of contestatio. Each member of this council will face me in combat. Win, and I'll consider your counsel regarding my mate. Lose, and you'll accept Blair as your Luna without question or challenge. Shocked silence filled the room. You can't be serious. Another council member sputtered. You'd fight your own council over an Omega? Over my mate, Roman corrected. Over the woman fate itself chose for me. Over the mother of the prophesied child who will save our people from endless war. He smiled, and it was a terrible thing. So yes, Counselor Marsh, I'm completely serious. Anyone who refuses to fight forfeits their seat on this council. Choose now. Thorne's face went red with rage. This is madness. The mate bond has made you weak. Distracted. Then defeating me should be easy. Roman descended from his throne with predatory grace. Training grounds. 1 hour. All of you. Blair heard the commotion from her tower chambers. Shouts and running footsteps. The metallic ring of weapons being drawn. She pressed her face to the window, watching pack members stream toward the training grounds. What's happening? She asked the servant who'd brought her lunch, a young woman named Clara who'd been kinder than the others. Clara bit her lip. The king invoked contestatio against the entire council. He's going to fight them all, one by one, to prove his right to choose you as Luna. Blair's blood went cold. He can't. There are 5 of them, all experienced alphas. He's the Alpha King. Clara's voice held awe. He's never lost a challenge. But still. She trailed off, worry creasing her features. Blair gripped the windowsill, her useless legs dangling beneath her. Roman was fighting for her, risking injury, exhaustion, potentially his crown, all because the council had told her she wasn't worthy. Guilt crashed over her like a wave. This was exactly what she'd feared. Roman sacrificing everything because of her. That night, long after the palace had gone quiet, Blair heard a soft tap at her window. She turned, expecting a bird, and gasped. Roman clung to the tower wall outside her window, his fingers gripping the stone like he'd climbed 3 stories as easily as walking upstairs. Blood streaked his knuckles, and she saw bruises forming on his jaw, but his eyes blazed with fierce determination. "Let me in," he said. Blair's hands shook as she struggled to open the window latch. Roman pulled himself through with fluid grace, landing silently on her floor despite his size. "You're insane," Blair whispered. "You could have fallen." "I told you I'd walk for both of us. I never said anything about limiting myself to doors." He crossed to her, cupping her face in his battered hands. "The guards won't let me visit you properly. The council's orders, trying to keep us apart until I come to my senses. So I improvised. You're bleeding. I fought 3 council members today, won every match." Pride gleamed in his eyes. 2 more tomorrow, and then they'll have no choice but to accept you." "Roman, stop." Blair pulled away from his touch, even though it hurt. "This is exactly what I didn't want. You're tearing your kingdom apart because of me. I'm showing my kingdom that their king doesn't abandon his mate when things get difficult." Roman settled onto the floor beside her bed, pulling off his boots with a wince. "I'm proving that strength comes in many forms, and sometimes the strongest thing you can do is choose love over politics. That's beautiful rhetoric. It's also naive." Blair's voice cracked. "Your counsel is right. I can't be what you need. You're everything I need." Roman reached up, pulling her down from the bed into his lap with surprising gentleness. "Stop trying to protect me by destroying us both. I won't accept the rejection, Blair. I refuse." She wanted to argue, but he started massaging her swollen feet with his bruised hands, his touch so tender it made her want to weep. Her feet had been aching for days, swollen and painful from pregnancy, and no one else had thought to help. "How did you know they hurt?" she whispered. "The mate bond. I can feel your discomfort." His thumbs worked magic on her arches, easing pain she'd been trying to ignore. "I feel everything you feel. Your pain, your fear, your heartbreak. When the council made you cry, I felt every tear like acid on my skin. I'm sorry. Don't apologize for having feelings. Don't apologize for struggling." Roman's hands moved to her calves, rubbing gently. "You're carrying the weight of a prophecy, pregnant with twins who hold the future of our people, paralyzed and scared and trying so damn hard to be brave. You're allowed to break sometimes." "Twins?" Blair's breath caught. "How do you know?" "The royal healer examined you while you slept yesterday. She detected 2 heartbeats." Roman's expression softened impossibly. "A boy and a girl. Both healthy, both strong, both inheriting the ancient bloodline. 2 babies, 2 prophesied children instead of 1. That's even more pressure on them," Blair said hollowly. "Even more reason for people like Marcus to want them dead. And even more reason for me to protect all 3 of you with everything I have." Roman lifted her hand, pressing it over his heart. "Feel that? My heart beats for you. My wolf lives for you. My crown means nothing if I can't share it with my mate. So stop trying to sacrifice our bond for a kingdom that will learn to accept you, or answer to me." Blair wanted to believe him, wanted it so desperately it ached. Roman stayed for hours, rubbing her feet, her back, her shoulders, everywhere pregnancy had made her sore and uncomfortable. He brought food from his own dinner, feeding her by hand when her arms grew tired. He talked about his day, about the fights, about Garrett's ongoing campaign to convince the palace staff that Blair was worthy. "He's very loyal to you," Blair murmured, drowsy and warm in Roman's arms. "He was my father's beta first, watched me grow up, trained me to fight. When my family died, Garrett was the one who kept me from drowning in rage and grief." Roman's voice rumbled against her back. "He's the closest thing I have to family now. Him and you and the twins." Blair's hand drifted to her swollen belly, feeling movement beneath her palm. The baby's kicked often now, active and strong. "They're going to be fighters," she said softly. "Good." Roman's hand covered hers. "They'll need to be." He held her until she fell asleep, then carefully settled her back into bed and slipped out the window like a shadow. It became their routine. Every night, Roman climbed the tower to her window. Every night, he brought food, offered comfort, reaffirmed his commitment. And every day, he fought the remaining council members, winning each brutal match. By the third night, Blair noticed changes in the servants' attitudes. Clara whispered that the pack was talking, impressed by their king's devotion. Even Mrs. Aldrich's cold disapproval had thawed to grudging respect. "He challenged Councillor Thorne today," Clara said as she helped Blair dress. "The fight lasted an hour. The king wouldn't yield, wouldn't quit, even when he was bleeding and exhausted. He just kept saying, 'For my mate, for my Luna,' over and over until Thorne finally submitted." Blair's throat tightened. "Is he hurt?" "Bruised and battered, but the healer says nothing's broken. He's asking for you, but the council still forbids official visits." Clara's expression turned sly. "Though I suppose what you do in your own chambers is your business." That night, Roman arrived more battered than before. A spectacular bruise colored his ribs, and he moved with careful stiffness. "You're hurt," Blair said, her hands hovering over the damage without touching. "I'm fine. Thorne fights dirty, but I expected that." Roman lowered himself to the floor with a grunt. "One more council member tomorrow, and then this is finished. They'll accept you, or they'll lose their positions." "Roman, look at what this is costing you. Look at what I'm gaining." He reached up, pulling her down into his arms. "You, our children, a future where I'm not alone anymore. That's worth any price." Blair buried her face in his neck, breathing in his scent. Pine and winter storms and something uniquely him. The mate bond thrummed between them, stronger every day, impossible to ignore. "I love you," she whispered. "I shouldn't. It's too fast, too soon. But I do. I love you so much it terrifies me." Roman's arms tightened almost painfully. "I love you too. From the moment I dreamed of you. From the moment the bond snapped into place. You're mine, Blair, and I'm yours. Nothing will change that." He kissed her then, deep and hungry, his hand tangling in her hair. The mate bond sang between them, pleasure racing down her spine despite her exhaustion. She wanted more, wanted everything, but the babies kicked protestingly between them. Roman broke the kiss with a breathless laugh. "Someone objects to being squished again." "They're very opinionated." Blair smiled despite her tears. "Good. They take after their mother." The fourth night, Roman arrived with triumph blazing in his eyes. "It's done. All 5 council members defeated. They've agreed to accept you as Luna." Relief and anxiety warred in Blair's chest. "Really? Really? The ceremony will be after the twins are born, but you're officially recognized as my mate. Anyone who questions it now questions my authority directly." Roman lifted her easily, spinning her in a circle that made her gasp. "You're my Luna, Blair. Mine." She wanted to celebrate, wanted to believe this was the end of their struggles. But something dark whispered in the back of her mind, a warning she couldn't quite grasp. That warning crystallized when Clara arrived the next morning with Blair's breakfast. The food smelled wrong. Blair's wolf, dormant for months, suddenly surged to alertness. Danger, it growled. Poison. Clara, who prepared this? Blair asked carefully. Mrs. Aldrich herself. She said she wanted to make something special to welcome you properly as Luna. Clara beamed, oblivious. See? Everyone's coming around. Blair's stomach clenched. Mrs. Aldrich, who'd made her contempt clear from the start. Mrs. Aldrich, who served on committees with the council members. Mrs. Aldrich, who had everything to lose if an Omega became Luna. Could you ask her to join me? Blair said, forcing a smile. I'd like to thank her personally. Clara left, and Blair stared at the food. If she was wrong, she'd offend the head of household over paranoia. If she was right, someone had just tried to murder her and the twins. The door opened, but it wasn't Mrs. Aldrich who entered. It was Counselor Thorne, his face twisted with rage, a knife gleaming in his hand. You should have rejected him, Thorne snarled. Should have left when you had the chance. But no. You had to be selfish, had to trap our king with your weak Omega wiles. So now I have to solve the problem myself. Blair screamed. Thorne lunged, the knife aimed at her belly, at the twins. Time seemed to slow. She couldn't run, couldn't dodge, couldn't do anything but watch death approach. The door exploded inward. Roman moved like death incarnate, covering the distance between them in impossible speed. His hand caught Thorne's wrist, bones snapping audibly under his grip. The knife clattered to the floor. You dare, Roman breathed, his voice barely recognizable. You dare touch my mate. Power exploded from him, raw alpha dominance that drove everyone in the tower to their knees. Guards poured through the door, summoned by Blair's scream, and stopped dead at the sight of their king holding a council member by the throat. Roman, Blair whispered. His eyes met hers, blazing with inhuman light. Did he touch you? No, you stopped him. Roman's attention returned to Thorne, who gasped and clawed at the hand crushing his windpipe. You conspired to kill my mate and my children. You violated guest right, pack law, and every code of honor our people hold sacred. The pack needs, Thorne choked out. The pack needs to witness what happens to traitors. Roman dragged Thorne toward the door, his strength making it look effortless. Garrett, summon everyone to the Great Hall, every wolf in this palace. Now. Within the hour, the entire court stood assembled, whispering and staring as Roman mounted the dais with Thorne kneeling before him in chains. Blair sat in a chair beside the throne. Roman had carried her there himself, refusing to let her out of his sight. This man, Roman announced, his voice carrying through the hall, attempted to murder my mate and my unborn children. He snuck into the Luna's chambers with a knife and malicious intent. His crime carries only one sentence. Your Majesty, Thorne gasped. Please, I was trying to save you. You were trying to destroy me. Roman's voice cracked like a whip. Blair is my mate, my Luna, the mother of my children. She is mine, chosen by fate, bound to me by powers older than crowns or councils. Anyone who threatens her threatens me directly. His eyes swept the crowd, blazing with alpha power. Let me be perfectly clear. Blair may not be able to walk. She may be pregnant with children not born of my blood. She may be an Omega without traditional power. None of that matters. She is my mate, and I would burn this kingdom to ashes before I let anyone harm her. He drew his ceremonial blade, the silver catching torchlight. This is what happens to those who threaten the Luna. The blade fell, swift and merciless. Thorne's body crumpled, and shocked silence filled the hall. Then, slowly, the pack members began to bow, not just to Roman, but to Blair as well. Roman turned to her, his expression softening impossibly. No one will question your place again. I've made certain of it. Blair should have been horrified by the violence, by the execution she'd just witnessed, but all she felt was safe, protected. claimed in a way that satisfied something primal in her wolf. "Thank you," she whispered. That night, Roman didn't climb through the window. He walked through the front door of her chambers, guards bowing as he passed, no one daring to question their king's right to visit his mate. He carried her to bed, held her close, and whispered promises against her hair until she fell asleep. For the first time since arriving at the palace, Blair let herself hope. The storm struck 3 days later, violent and unseasonable, turning day to night with its fury. Lightning cracked across the sky, and thunder shook the palace walls. Blair sat, at her window, watching nature's violence with growing unease. The first contraction hit without warning, stealing her breath. Too early. She was barely 8 months pregnant. The twins weren't supposed to come yet. "Clara!" she gasped, but her voice was lost in another crack of thunder. The second contraction was stronger, and suddenly her water broke, warm fluid soaking through her nightgown. Panic seized her chest. "Roman!" she screamed, knowing he was in meetings but needing him desperately. The mate bond flared to life, and she felt his answering surge of alarm. Footsteps pounded in the hallway seconds before her door crashed open. Roman took one look at her and went pale. "The babies?" "Coming. Too early. Something's wrong." Another contraction cut off her words, and she doubled over with a cry. Roman scooped her up, shouting for the royal healer as he carried her to the bed. Servants scattered, running for supplies. The healer, a stern woman named Moira, arrived with her apprentices, taking control with calm efficiency. "The storm triggered early labor," Moira announced after a brief examination. "The twins are coming whether we're ready or not. Your Majesty, you should wait outside." "I'm not leaving her." Roman's tone brooked no argument. He settled beside Blair, letting her grip his hand with crushing force. The labor was brutal. Hours blurred together in a haze of pain and effort. The storm raged outside, seeming to intensify with every contraction. Lightning struck so close that windows rattled and the air smelled of ozone. "Something's happening," Moira said sharply. "The babies. They're glowing." Blair couldn't see past her own agony, but she felt it. Power surging through her veins, ancient and vast. The magic that had manifested as a shield during Marcus's attack was waking fully, responding to her extremity. "Push!" Moira commanded. "The first one's crowning." Blair pushed, screaming, and felt something fundamental shift inside her. Not just the baby moving, but her wolf stirring for the first time since the attack. Magic flooded through her paralyzed legs, hot and electric. "I can feel them," she gasped. "My legs. I can feel my legs." Roman's hand tightened on hers. "Don't think about that now. Focus on the babies." She pushed again, and the world exploded into silver light. The first baby emerged with a wail that shook the palace walls. Power radiated from the child's tiny body, visible as glowing silver light that illuminated every corner of the chamber. "A boy," Moira announced, her voice awed. "The prophesied heir." Before Blair could catch her breath, the second set of contractions began. She bore down, her newly awakened magic singing through her veins, and delivered the second twin into a world still bathed in otherworldly light. "A girl," Moira whispered. "Twins of prophecy." Both babies glowed with lunar radiance, their cries harmonizing in a way that made every wolf in the palace howl in response. The storm outside reached a crescendo, then suddenly broke, revealing clear skies and a full moon that seemed impossibly bright. Blair collapsed back against the pillows, exhausted beyond measure. Roman stared at their children with wonder, then at Blair. "Your legs," he said. "Blair, your legs are moving." She looked down and saw her toes flexing, her knees bending. Sensation flooded through previously dead nerves, painful and overwhelming and miraculous. The paralysis was never permanent, Moira said quietly, cleaning the babies with gentle hands. The ancient power needed to be contained, protected, kept dormant until the children were ready to be born. Your body sacrificed mobility to shield them from detection, from those who would hunt prophesied bloodlines. Now that they're here, the magic releases its hold. Blair tried to stand and collapsed immediately, her legs too weak from months of disuse. Roman caught her before she hit the floor. "Easy," he murmured. "It'll take time to rebuild strength, but you'll walk again. You'll run again." Tears streamed down Blair's face as Moira placed first one baby, then the other, in her arms. The twins had stopped glowing, but Blair could still feel their power, vast and ancient and utterly new. "They're perfect," she whispered. "Like their mother." Roman pressed a kiss to her temple, his own eyes wet with tears. "You did it, Blair. You're incredible." The boy had Roman's golden eyes and dark hair already visible on his tiny head. The girl had Blair's features, but eyes that shifted between gold and silver. Both were beautiful, healthy, and radiating a power that made the mate bond between Blair and Roman sing with completion. "What should we name them?" Roman asked. Blair looked at her children, these tiny beings who held the future of their people, and felt something settle in her chest. Purpose. Destiny. Love beyond measure. "The boy is Caius," she said. "It means rejoice. And the girl is Selene, for the moon that chose our bloodline." Caius and Selene. Roman repeated the names like prayers. Our children. Our family. Outside, wolves howled their welcome to the prophesied twins. Inside, Blair held her babies close and felt, for the first time in months, truly whole. Marcus attacked 3 days later before Blair had fully recovered her strength. The siege horn sounded at dawn, its mournful wail dragging Blair from exhausted sleep. Beside her, Roman was already moving, pulling on armor with practiced efficiency. "Stay here," he commanded. "You're still healing." "No." Blair struggled to her feet, legs shaking but holding. She'd spent every waking hour since the birth forcing her muscles to remember how to work. "I won't hide while you fight." "Blair, they're coming for our children, for the prophecy." She met his eyes, fierce and certain. "I'm the one who carries the ancient bloodline. My magic is what protects them. You need me out there." Roman's jaw clenched, but he nodded. "Then we fight together." Garrett burst through the door, his expression grim. Marcus brought an army, rogues and corrupted alphas from 6 territories. They're demanding we surrender the twins, or they'll tear down the walls. Blair's magic rose inside her, responding to threat, and the twins, sleeping peacefully in their cradles, began to glow with soft silver light. Even newborn, they sensed danger to their pack. "Tell Marcus," Roman said coldly, "that he can try to take them, and he can die in the attempt." The palace transformed into organized chaos. Warriors armed themselves while healers prepared for casualties. The walls bristled with archers, and alpha power crackled through the air as Roman's most powerful wolves took defensive positions. Blair dressed in borrowed armor that fit poorly over her still swollen stomach, but she refused to be left behind. When Roman tried to insist she stay in the protected inner chambers, she called her magic. And silver light exploded from her palms, more controlled than before, but still devastatingly powerful. "I'm not fragile anymore," she said firmly. "I'm the Luna. I fight for my pack." Roman stared at her for a long moment, then smiled with fierce pride. "Then let's show them what happens when they threaten our family." The battle began at midday when Marcus's forces breached the outer wall. Wolves poured through the gap, snarling and snapping, driven by hatred of the prophecy and fear of change. Blair stood on the palace steps beside Roman, the twins in a protective cradle behind them, surrounded by the fiercest warriors of the pack. When the first wave of rogues reached them, she raised her hands and spoke words that came from racial memory, from the first Luna who'd ever walked the earth. Lunara ve, solaris tum, protectum me et meum. Silver light exploded outward in a dome, covering the palace and everyone loyal to Roman. Rogues slammed into it and fell back, smoking and snarling. Inside the shield, Roman's warriors glowed with enhanced strength, the ancient magic amplifying their power. Now! Roman roared, and his wolves charged. Blair held the shield with gritted teeth, sweat pouring down her face as she channeled power she'd never imagined possessing. Beside her, the twins' glow intensified, their infant magic feeding into hers, strengthening her. Through the mate bond, she felt Roman fighting with savage efficiency, his alpha power cutting through rogues like they were nothing. Garrett fought at his side, protecting his king's flank. The battle raged, violent and bloody, wolves falling on both sides. Then Marcus himself broke through, massive and scarred, heading straight for Blair. "End the prophecy!" he snarled, launching himself at her. Blair's shield flickered as she diverted power to defense. Magic crackled around her fist as she swung, catching Marcus across the jaw with supernatural force. He flew backward, shock registering in his eyes. "The prophecy isn't ending," Blair said, her voice carrying across the battlefield. "It's beginning." She let the shield drop, channeling all her power into a single word of command, the voice of the first Luna speaking through her descendant. "Submit." The word crashed across every wolf on the battlefield like a physical force. Rogues dropped to their knees, unable to resist the command coded into their very DNA. Even Marcus collapsed, his body betraying him, forced into submission by power older than memory. Only Roman and his loyal wolves remained standing, protected by the mate bond and their allegiance. Blair walked forward on shaking legs, each step a triumph over months of paralysis. She stopped before Marcus, looking down at the beta who'd tried to kill her and her children. "You're right about one thing," she said quietly. "The prophesied children will change everything. They'll end the wars, unite the packs, and bring peace to territories that have known only violence. And I will raise them to be strong, compassionate leaders who value all wolves, Alpha, Beta, and Omega alike." She turned to address the kneeling rogues, her voice carrying through the sudden silence. "You can choose. Submit to the prophecy and find places in a unified pack, or flee and spend your lives running from the future that's already here." One by one, the rogues bowed their heads in true submission, recognizing the power of the ancient bloodline. Even some of the corrupted alphas, seeing their cause lost, chose acceptance over death. Marcus alone remained defiant. "I won't." Roman's blade ended his protest, swift and merciless. "You threatened my mate and my children twice. There are no third chances." As Marcus's body fell, the last resistance crumbled. The battle was over, won not through violence alone, but through the undeniable proof of prophecy made manifest. Blair swayed, exhaustion finally catching up with her. Roman caught her before she fell, lifting her into his arms with reverent care. "You were magnificent," he whispered against her hair. "We were magnificent." Blair's hand found his. Together. Behind them, the twins began to cry, hungry and tired and utterly oblivious to having just witnessed history. Blair laughed, the sound half sob, and let Roman carry her back to their children. The prophecy had been fulfilled. The Luna who couldn't walk had risen to save them all. 3 months later, Blair walked down the temple aisle on her own 2 feet. Her legs still ached sometimes, rebuilding strength after so long paralyzed, but they held her steady as she moved toward where Roman waited at the altar. He looked devastating in ceremonial robes, his golden eyes tracking her every step with fierce pride. The temple was packed with wolves from every territory, former enemies now united under the prophecy, come to witness the official Luna ceremony. Elder Mara sat in the front row, beaming with satisfaction. Garrett stood beside Roman as his second, a grin splitting his usually stoic face. And in cradles near the altar, Caius and Selene slept peacefully, their presence a living promise of the future they represented. Blair reached the final 3 steps to the altar, and Roman descended to meet her. He didn't need to. She could have climbed them herself. But he insisted anyway, lifting her into his arms for those last steps. "I can walk," she whispered, smiling. "I know." Roman's voice was rough with emotion. "But I told you I'd walk for both of us through 1,000 lifetimes. Some habits are worth keeping." He set her gently before the altar, and the officiating elder began the ceremony. Blair barely heard the words, too focused on Roman's eyes, on the mate bond singing between them, on the overwhelming rightness of this moment. "Do you, Blair, accept Roman as your mate, your king, your other half?" the elder intoned. "I do." Her voice rang clear and strong. "Do you, Roman, accept Blair as your mate, your Luna, your other half?" "I do. Forever and always." The elder placed the Luna crown on Blair's head, delicate silver work to look like moonlight itself. "Then by the power vested in me by the old laws and the new, I declare you king and Luna, bound for all time." Roman kissed her as the crowd erupted in howls of celebration. The mate bond blazed between them, complete and unbreakable, and Blair felt tears of joy streak down her face. When they finally broke apart, Roman pressed his forehead to hers. "I love you, my mate, my Luna, mine. I love you too, my king, my heart, mine." They turned to face their pact together, and the crowd roared its approval. Blair saw faces she recognized, servants who'd doubted her, warriors who'd fought beside her, survivors of Marcus's attack who'd chosen to join them, all bowing, all accepting, all united. Caius woke and began to cry, and Blair laughed, lifting her son from his cradle while Roman took Selene. The twins settled immediately in their parents' arms, their soft glow a reminder of the magic they carried. "Your people, Luna," Roman murmured. "Our people." Blair looked at the assembled wolves, at the territories united, at her family surrounding her with love and protection. She thought about the broken Omega in a cottage, unable to walk, certain she'd never be enough. She thought about the Luna she'd become, walking, powerful, loved beyond measure. "Our people," she agreed, "our future." As they left the temple to celebrations that would last for days, Roman leaned close and whispered, "I meant what I said. I'll walk for you through 1,000 lifetimes, not because you need me to anymore, but because I want to. Because carrying you is the greatest honor of my life." Blair smiled, shifting Caius to one arm so she could take Roman's hand. "Then I'll walk beside you for 1,000 lifetimes more. As your Luna, as your mate, as your equal. Always my equal." Roman kissed her temple. "Even when you couldn't walk, you were always my equal." Outside, the full moon rose over the palace, bathing everything in silver light. In the distance, wolves howled their welcome to a new era, one of peace, unity, and prophecy fulfilled. And Blair, the Omega who became Luna, the paralyzed mother who birthed power, the broken woman who became whole, walked into her future with her head held high and her mate at her side. She'd finally found where she belonged, and she'd never walk alone again.